From having to deal with conflict head-on to responsibly creating a space of trust and growth, let's talk about Jordan Peterson's views on how to create the perfect relationship. First, let's start at the beginning. You gotta stop waiting for Cupid. The thing about dating is that it's hard. Like it's stop believing in love and break your own heart hard. So that's not gonna change. Peterson believes that no Cupid's ever gonna inject the ability to date and woo into you. It's a skill at the end of the day, and to learn how to do it, you've gotta put in the hours. If you've lost the ability to hold a conversation, well, you've got to relearn it. So the social skills related to dating are crucial and require practice to put yourself out there. You've got to create the habit and the goodwill to improve your game. This might also mean working on your self-esteem, because you've got to believe in yourself to have someone else believe in you too. Establishing trust and learning along the way with your partner is a great way to go about it too. And so if you've already got a partner and have survived the dating phase, what now? Well, now it's important to spend time with each other. So this might be obvious, but it isn't really. Because what's spending time together really? It's not just lying physically together all the time. It's about actively being with each other with the goal of having the relationship flourish. According to Peterson, for a romantic relationship, there's gotta be time for romance. This includes dates, which should be about 4 hours a week.
Place is nice.
Yeah. I really like the music that they play. I mean, the food's good, too, but...
No, the pizza's really good.
Now, of course, this can be split over different days. Then there's gotta be romantic interludes, which basically means intimacy. The last is conversation. Not random talk, but talking about practical and personal matters, asking each other about work and other aspects of the relationship so that you're in the know. In short, you've gotta find the time to tell your story and listen to your partners as well. Plus, conversations aren't just for romantic relationships. They're also important in friendships. As per Peterson, a friend should be happy and sad in your happiness and sadness, and in the end, should want what's best for you. But talking alone isn't gonna do the job. You also need to set a standard for the relationship you and your partner want. You can't be taking stabs in the dark in hopes that your hand will come back with what you desire most. That's unfair to you and your partner. Plus, it can lead to needless frustration piling up. JP says that you've gotta get into it and to negotiate the kind of relationship that you're dreaming of.
Did you find him well? You forget your head and you listen to your heart. Because the truth is, honey, there's no sense living your life without this. To make the journey and not fall deeply in love, well...
This means being vulnerable and open. In the end, the standard that's set should reflect what can be expected from the union. Peterson's view is that both people in a relationship should make a pact to be sincere and openly share their needs. And for this naturally leads to the next important aspect of a perfect relationship. Trust each other and take the risk. It's always a gamble opening up to another person. An intimate knowledge of your fears and deepest needs can always be used against you. But what good's being cynical and afraid gonna do? All that's just gonna stand in the way of you having a genuine connection with someone. So it's always better to take the riskier route and choose to work with trust.
The hardest thing is loving someone and then having the courage to let them love you back.
But the heart's not like a box that gets filled up. It expands in size the more you love.
According to Peterson, life's too difficult, and you can't exactly negotiate it alone. You've got to tell your partner the truth so you have someone you can rely on. Only this way can you have someone else get behind the steering wheel if it gets too bumpy for you alone. He reiterated the importance of trust by saying that in a relationship where romance remains intact, truth must be king. After taking the courageous step to trust, you've got to settle into your life with your partner and live by a principle. Life is full of the good, the bad, and the ugly. But with trust established, you've got to get to the business of everyday life. So how do you ensure that things don't scatter all over the place when you hit troubled waters? Well, there's got to be a shared vision, which is rooted in a principle that both parties should follow. Peterson calls it the principle of illumination, which dictates an imagined ideal that the couple must work towards. You must imagine it to be the best of all possible futures and live openly and fully in it. Both parties must live out their own truth. For this, you've got to make it instead of looking for it. When dating, things aren't certain, especially things that can arise in the future. So your partner will never be the absolute best option. I mean, how'd you know even if they were? You can't possibly know what awaits you in the future. So this is where commitment really comes in. You've got to stick together through the thick and thin and live according to your shared principle. This is the only way to mature and learn together. It's also a way to unearth wisdom shared by only only the two people in the relationship, which also brings them closer, because no two other people on the earth have been through it. And in all this, there's one important thing. You must make peace with your partner. For this, let's try and understand the three fundamental states of being: tyranny, slavery, and negotiation. Tyranny means doing what you want all the time. It's a state of cynicism. There really isn't room for a genuine connection on this path, and its opposite is slavery, which takes away power and agency. So what's left? Yep, negotiation.
And remember, my sentimental friend, that a heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others.
Peterson explains that only when there's sincere negotiation between two parties will the tyrannizing cease, because without negotiation, one side will keep on winning and making the other party miserable. Now, negotiation is not easy. Communications for the purpose of negotiation could have a negative pushback, and no one likes conflict with someone they care about, but you have to persist because it's important for open communication. Jordan warns that avoidance, anger, and tears are always easier, and they'll tempt you. So if you try to avoid all that and toy with the idea of a breakup or divorce just because communication takes too much effort, it might end up becoming a haunting failure. So you've got to work on your negotiating skills in a relationship so that things are out in the open, and this'll help with the next thing: being realistic. It's never nice to hear this phrase. It kind of yanks you out of your idealized world, but see, it's important to have this awareness in order to avoid regret later. In a relationship especially, being realistic matters. Peterson argues that people in relationships should be realistic when it comes to their everyday affairs and cohabitation.
You're not perfect, sport. And let me save you the suspense. This girl you met, she isn't perfect either. But the question is whether or not you're perfect for each other.
He maintains that cohabitation without the intent of sticking it out for the long haul can seldom lead to good things, particularly if there are children involved. Also, trying out partners repeatedly with the hopes of finding the one for you is good, but the more you do that, the less likely you are to attach yourself to a person. So it's important to be realistic from the get-go. And a part of this is also to determine the roles in a relationship. You can do this by the negotiating skills that I mentioned earlier. Such argumentation helps clear the air and sort out priorities, goals, hopes, careers, duties, and tasks should all be up for discussion so that both parties are clear about things in their relationship. In short, the dynamics of interaction are outlined through this communication.
I guarantee that at some point, one or both of us is going to want to get out of this thing. But I also guarantee that if I don't ask you to be mine, I'll regret it the rest of my life.
And lastly, love is effort. Peterson says that tough times are never far. So if you want someone to stay by you, you gotta work at it. At the end of the day, your friends and partner should want the best for you. And that was all about what Jordan Peterson's gotta say about how to create the perfect relationship.